Hey team, you got Chris O'Lee coming at you here at the tail end of this week. Guys, wanted to take a quick second and not miss this opportunity to make a couple call outs. Now, I'm not going to be mentioning names specifically, but if what I describe describes you, man, give yourself a pat on the back, and it's only a matter of time before your name ends up in our mouths with a good call out. I want to call out all of the foremen, not the general foreman. Right now, I'm talking about the foremen that are taking the time to help to sharpen the skill set of those that are underneath you on the crew, right? Every foreman's got groundsmen or apprentice climbers or journeyman tree trimmers that you're responsible for. And the foreman is the first piece of leadership within the chain of command. Why am I calling out foremen here? Well, I'll tell you guys, we've got individuals within the company. We've got some individuals that have been in a groundsman capacity for more than a year, some of them more than 2 years. We've got apprentice climbers that have graduated into that position, but they've stayed there for over a year, some of them 2 years. What does that speak to? Does it speak to the individual maybe not wanting to move up? I doubt it. I would imagine that if we were to talk to you, those of you who have been groundsmen for more than a year, many of you are going to say that you definitely want to take on more responsibility, but oftentimes what we end up hearing is that things can be so busy in the field that the time isn't taken and set aside for you guys to have some focused training. Now, as a company, we're building some mechanisms to get around this, and believe me, this isn't happening on all ends. On many and most of the crews, we see a good pattern of the foreman taking the time to make sure that he gets some training in on those that are on his crew and that we get those individuals signed off and promoted up. We don't want people to stay in a groundsman position for 2 years. And conversely, I doubt that any of you groundsmen want to stay groundsmen for 2 years. Not that groundsman duties are better than any of our roles. I'll tell you right now, I love to rake, and if I show up on your job, I'm probably going to end up doing some raking for you. I like to demonstrate with a rake what my work ethic is. Same thing with a blower, same thing with a chainsaw, same thing with a set of climbing gear. So whatever position that you're in on the crew, make sure that you're building a good relationship with your foreman, and make sure you're going to him and expressing your desire to continue to be sharpened as an individual and to take on new skills. Now, if you're one of those foremen that's taking the time each week to expose your guys to new things in a controlled setting and to make sure that they're picking up new skills, hats off to you. You guys are the true professionals. You guys are the individuals that will not only bring up those around you, but as a result, you're going to bring yourself up in this industry. You're going to be recognized as somebody that takes the time to sharpen those around him or her. So big shout out to all of the foremen out there that are taking the time to conduct training with their crews and getting them signed off in site docs and promoted up. We want to do the best that we can for our families, and a good way to do that is to invest in the people around us and get those individuals coming up with new skills, exercising those skills on the daily to the point to where you can trust them with more responsibilities. So team, let's keep it up. I also wanted to mention, and I told you guys that I would be trying to bring you feedback that we're getting from the customers. Well, I had a meeting with the new VMIs that have been put into PG&E's area here in Yosemite. And I took a whole page of notes of good information that they wanted us to be aware of based on their observations that are happening out in the field. Now, the number one most negative trend that we're seeing, and you're hearing it right here, because I want you guys to be empowered. I don't want you to be caught off guard when the VMIs show up on your job site. One of the biggest deficiencies that we're seeing is in the amount of attention that's given to the JSA. Now, as you guys have probably agreed, the JSA is a very important document. It can be really easy, though, to start to think that it's just something we have to do so that we can work. And if we catch ourselves thinking that, we need to do a hard check. Maybe get into some of the TCIA literature and look at all the individuals that are losing their lives each year in this industry. The JSA is a very important document, and that JSA needs to have the address of your work location on it. It needs to have details of the hazards that are in your work location, and that JSA needs to be on your work location. If you're working on a cross-country span, hike that JSA up there with you. Don't leave it in the truck. This is one of the biggest deficiencies that these VMIs are seeing. And I'll tell you right now, it's great news to us because they're not seeing guys one-hand chainsaws. They're not seeing us employ improper pruning techniques. They're not seeing big problems with our traffic control setup. But when it comes to our JSA, and I'm going to add in the EAP, the Emergency Action Plan, we've got to make sure that we're demonstrating that we recognize the value of those documents. So guys, take the time, tailboard with your teams. Don't let yourself get red tagged because you're not giving enough attention to the JSA. And we do want to fill out a JSA for each work location that we may visit in the day. So if you're on a crew and you're hitting multiple locations each day, don't think that that JSA that you filled out in the morning is going to cover you for all 7, 10, or 15 locations you're going to be on throughout the day. We want to do JSAs for each one of our work sites and show our customer and show our team that we recognize the value of that document. Keeping JSAs updated. Here's a big one. I remember years ago I was on a crew. We filled out the JSA. We tried to capture what hazards we could see, but we got to working. We found some chunks of rebar that were sticking up out of the ground about 6 inches, and they were rusted. Anybody could have tripped, maybe a groundsman pulling brush backwards. He could have tripped and fallen on one of these, and it would have been a catastrophe. Not only did we add them to the JSA and grab everybody and have them come over and we tailboarded them on this newfound hazard, but we painted all of them orange. Then we figured out we could take some buckets that we found and put buckets over them. So there was no potential for somebody to be impaled on one of these newfound hazards. I think about that because who knows what would have happened if we didn't take the time to add that to the JSA. So remember, your JSA is a living document. And if there are new hazards that are observed, believe me, you don't want to just take a mental note of a new hazard, fail to communicate that to your team, and have somebody else end up getting hurt later in the day. That's going to bother you big time. You're probably going to lose some sleep over that. We are not in the business of needing to lose sleep, folks. We need to be well rested for this work. So come at the JSA with your whole heart. Recognize how important that document is and demonstrate that we can be trusted to be responsible enough with these responsibilities that we have. Team, you guys are doing a great job out there. We got a bunch of exciting stuff coming down the pipe. We are starting to get some EVM work released to us here in and around the Yosemite area. We're expecting a huge amount of EVM coming out of some of the other territories. It'll be a really awesome target for our mechanized equipment. So guys, stay tuned. We've got a lot of overtime coming in the second half of this year. We just got to get there. We want to be safe when we get there. Guys, take the time to show your affections for your families. We don't ever want to get so hyper-focused on our work responsibilities that we let our at-home responsibilities fall by the wayside. I'm guilty of that at times myself. We're really missing the mark. If we're turning our backs on our families to be able to perform this work, we've got to be balanced, and we've got to make sure that our family is at the forefront of our minds and hearts. So a lot of you are doing that in huge ways. I'm taking pages out of each of your book myself. So guys, we love you. We'll see you guys this following week. Keep your heads up, folks.